back, everybody. This is week 11. This is my college football predictions for 10 of the biggest games this week. This is part of an ongoing series as part of ESPN's college football pick'em game. Last week didn't do too hot on my picks. I think I had a 5-5 record, so not exactly my best week, but we're going to bounce back and we're going to get better this week. Starting off with our first game here, it's number 7 LSU, who had a huge win last week, versus Arkansas. LSU's got a lot of momentum right now. They're first place in the SEC West. They control their own destiny, getting to Atlanta, which is very impressive for Brian Kelly in his first year. Quarterback Jaden Daniels is playing like an entirely new player compared to where he was a year ago. It's great to see. The defense is playing well. They did get blown out against Tennessee, but Tennessee's a very high-powered offense, so they've been improving, which is promising to see if you're an LSU fan. Looking at Arkansas, it's been kind of a letdown from where they were at a year ago, but this is an entirely different team. I understand that. The offense has an ability to put up big numbers. They're averaging 485 yards per game, and they have the second best rushing offense in the SEC. This defense has been a bit of a liability. They're averaging nearly 30 points a game, over 300 passing yards per game. So Arkansas has an ability to score, and they have ability to move the ball well up and down the field, but their defense has gotten them in some troubles this season. They've kind of been on a slide as of late. ESPN's Football Power Index really likes LSU in this one, and that's part of the reason I'm going to take LSU. I just don't know if Arkansas's defense can keep them in this game. Moving on now, we have some Big Ten action. It's Purdue versus number 21 Illinois. This one's a noon kick on ESPN2. Purdue, they're losers of 2 straight. They're struggling to find consistency kind of all season. This offense, they average nearly 30 points a game, close to 300 passing yards a game. Not very strong in the rushing attack. The defense is allowing 25 points per game. Stopping the ground game against this Illinois team will be key. Speaking of Illinois, they are coming off a tough loss, but they played well overall, and they were banged up, had some injuries dealing with last week. They've been playing well, running the football, averaging over 190 rushing yards a game. This defense, though, is one of the best in the nation, holding opponents to... They have the best scoring defense in the nation, 10.4 points per game, and they hold their opponents to under 80 rushing yards a game. Wouldn't really be an issue against Purdue, rather, a team that really stretches out the field, throws it more. I'm going to take the Illini in this one because I think that they're just better overall on both sides of the ball, and they've been more consistent than Purdue has. To the Big 12 we go. It's Iowa State versus number 18 Oklahoma State. This one is a 3:30 kick on ESPNU. Iowa State, they've been really in a skid as of late. They've lost 4 out of their last 5. This offense is struggling to score points. They're averaging 22.7 points per game. But this defense is one of the best in the Big 12, holding opponents to an average of 284 yards per game and 16 points per game, which is pretty impressive when you do that in a conference that's known for high-powered offenses. Oklahoma State, they have just totally fallen off. They were ranked inside the top 10, and then Kansas State kind of blew them out, and they have not looked the same since. They lost last week to Kansas, so they're trying to avoid losing 3 straight, I believe. Their offense over these last 2 games, they have been averaging only 8 points a game, which is really unusual for a Mike Gundy-led squad. This defense has been allowing large numbers, over 300 yards per game, or over 30 points a game, and over 466 yards per game. This is one of the worst defenses in the Big 12. So I'm going to take Iowa State here. The FPI leans Oklahoma State, but I think that I'm going to take the team with the better defense to come out on top in this one, and that is Iowa State. Moving now to the SEC, it's number 9 Alabama versus number 11 Ole Miss. This one's a 3:30 kick on CBS. Alabama, what happened? They've lost 2 out of their last 3 now. Very uncharacteristic for Alabama to lose 2 games in the regular season. So this is kind of not uncharted territory, but it's not familiar territory for the Crimson Tide. They still have got Bryce Young at quarterback, and they still have an ability to score 50. So just because this team has lost 2 games does not mean they just suddenly have no talent. The defense is holding opponents to 18 points a game and 303 yards per game. High-powered offenses like Tennessee have given this defense fits in the past. We'll see if Ole Miss has an ability to do that. They do have a very good ground game on offense for switching to Ole Miss now. They're averaging over 260 rushing yards a game, which is the best in the SEC. I don't know if I trust Jackson Dart enough to make a big-time throw or really make a clutch play down the stretch if they need him to do that. The defense is holding opponents to 21.6 points a game and 378 yards per game. Those are both respectable numbers, but will likely be pushed against Alabama. But I'm going to take Alabama to bounce back here. I can only imagine what practice has been like for the Crimson Tide this week after kind of how they underperformed, I think, to a lot of people's expectations last week against LSU. So I'm going to take Alabama to bounce back here, but who knows? If we see another Alabama loss, I'm not sure what will happen in Tuscaloosa. They might go crazy. Switching now to some Group G5 action, Group of 5. Number 22, UCF is taking on number 17, Tulane. I believe, if this is correct, this is Tulane's first ranked versus ranked matchup since 1973. So shout out Tulane, the Green Wave. UCF, though, they have a really powerful offense. They can average over 500 yards a game. They've only been turning that into 35 points a game, which I think you might expect to be translate into a little more points when you're averaging that many yards. So I don't know if there's something going on there. But quarterback John Rice Plumlee, he has been Mr. Do-It-All for this team. He leads them in passing yards and rushing yards. He's really putting the offense on his back. Looking at Tulane now, they are playing red hot. You love to see it for a smaller school like this to have some success. The offense is averaging 30 points a game, 418 yards a game. The defense is holding opponents to 17 points a game and 307 yards per game. With that in mind, I'm going to take UCF in this one. I think that their offense is more dynamic. They have an ability to score more, and I think their defense is at just, maybe a hair behind Tulane's, and I'm going to take Gus Malzahn with his coaching experience and his leadership qualities. I think he's going to get his team ready for this one. I'm going to take UCF to win this one, and Tulane, they've got a tough stretch coming down. I think they still have to play Cincinnati, UCF, so they've got some of the big boys in the American, so a lot to be determined in this conference. Switching now to more Big Ten West action, it's Wisconsin versus Iowa. This one's a 3:30 game on Fox Sports 1. These two teams are typically the powers of the Big Ten West, but both of them kind of having a down year. Wisconsin is starting to look better. They played up to kind of what we expect from them last week. They're averaging 30 points a game on offense, 386 yards per game. The running game is going to be key. If they got to run the ball well, Braylon Allen, Chaz Malusi, so those are your kind of guys you want to look for. On defense, the Badgers are allowing just 20 points a game and 325 yards per game. This one is going to have a classic Big Ten West feel to it. Physical play in the trenches, the lines of scrimmage are really going to set the tones for this game. Running in between the tackles, that's what's going to determine the success for each of these teams. Iowa, let's take a look at them for a minute. They've won 2 straight. They're starting to kind of turn around. The offense is showing a little bit of legs, but overall in the season, they're still only averaging 17 points a game and 262 yards a game. So that's still a concern. Spencer Petras at quarterback. I don't think you can rely on him to do much of anything. The defense, though, has been the spotlight for this team. They're holding opponents to 14 points a game and 264 yards per game. Wisconsin has a slight lead in this one, and I'm going to take Wisconsin to win this. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be low scoring. I'm not sure what the over-under is, but I would probably take the under. I think Wisconsin's going to have the edge in the quarterback, and that's going to make the difference here in this one. So I will take the Badgers on Wisconsin. Moving on to the next pick now, it's number 19, Kansas State versus Baylor. This one is a 7 p.m. kick on Fox Sports 1. Kansas State, they were riding really high, especially after blowing out Oklahoma State, but they've stumbled a little bit, so they've been a roller coaster the last few weeks. They've been up, they've been down, they've been all over the place. This offense, though, they can do one thing well, and that is run the football. They average 218 rushing yards per game. This passing game is shaky. I don't know if you can rely on Adrian Martinez in a clutch moment if you need him to deliver, on a 3rd and long or something like that. I don't know if you can rely on that to convert, especially through the air. So that's something to look at. Looking at the defense side of things, they're holding opponents to 19 points a game and 367 yards per game. That's pretty good for the Big 12, considering everything that that conference is kind of known for. Looking at Baylor now, they're a team that was kind of struggling in October, but they're trending in the right direction now. The offense is averaging 38 points a game, 451 yards per game, including 210 rushing yards per game. So both of them can run the ball pretty effectively on average. So those two strengths, they kind of mirror each other quite well. The defense for Baylor is holding opponents to 24 points a game and 355 yards per game. So they mirror each other kind of in the defensive side of things too. Baylor has the lean in the FPI. I'm going to take Baylor to get the win here. I think that their offense has more firepower, but I think it's a good game, and I think this one could go either way. I don't think it's as wide of a lean as the FPI is leading here. And this one's the big game. This one's got game day at it. This is number 4, TCU versus number 18, Texas. This is a 7:30 kick on ABC. Last I checked, TCU was a 7-point dog here. So even though they're a top 4 team in the country, I think a lot of people question them, especially the bettors. They don't have a lot of faith in them. But they've been impressive nonetheless. TCU has found ways to win. People will say, well, 4 of their wins have come against, backup quarterbacks. That's not on TCU. They have won the game. Their offense is electric, averaging 43 points per game, 508 yards per game. Max Duggan at quarterback has been great. On defense, this team is allowing 26.9 points a game, 396 yards per game, so a little high in the points. TCU, they have won some high-scoring affairs. It's kind of what you expect out of this conference, but they've found ways to win, and Sonny Dykes doing this in year 1. I don't think it gets talked about enough. Looking at Texas now, they've played well as of late. They haven't, always come out on top, but I think they're trending in the right direction. I think Sark, I don't think Texas fans should not jump the boat on Sark. They should not panic yet. They're averaging 36 points a game, 447 yards per game. They'll need to have a big day on offense to keep up with TCU. Defense holding opponents to 21 points a game, 381 yards per game. So they're going to be tested in this one as well. Don't expect those averages to hold up in the final on the final score. In the FPI, the ESPN just loves Texas in this one, giving them a 73% chance to win. I find that models and stuff like this really like Texas because Texas looks good on paper. I'm going to take TCU, though. I don't know if Texas has the offensive prowess to keep up with TCU. So I think TCU, it's going to be high scoring, and I think TCU will just kind of outscore them and run away with it. Moving on to some ACC action, it's number 15 North Carolina versus number 21 Wake Forest. This one is a 7:30 p.m. game, and it's on ESPN2. North Carolina, speaking of big offenses, they have found ways to win thanks to the big numbers that they can put up. Led by quarterback Drake May, this offense is averaging 40 points a game, including 329 passing yards per game. May is quietly one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Maybe not so quietly if you're a Tar Heels fan. The defense is allowing an average of 31 points a game and 457 yards per game, so that has been a weak point for this team, but the offense has had enough firepower that it hasn't really made that much of an impact on their record overall. Looking at Wake Forest, they've kind of fallen under people's expectations the last couple of weeks. They've lost 2 straight, averaging 36.9 points per game on the season, but over the last 2 weeks, they have seemingly just stalled short of what is expected of them. Veteran quarterback Sam Hartman, he's there under center, so you kind of can rely on that. He's been there, he's done that, but he hasn't looked like himself the last 2 weeks, especially in that Louisville game 2 weeks ago. I really thought they were going to bounce back last week against NC State, but that ended up not happening. This defense is holding opponents to 27.3 points a game and 372 yards per game, so not great numbers, but not terrible, not as bad as North Carolina's. So they're going to be tested in this one. North Carolina's going to throw it all over the yard. We know what they're going to do, but their offense is going to have to pick it up. Wake Forest's offense is going to have to pick it up to keep up with UNC. I'm going to take North Carolina here. ESPN's FPI does like Wake Forest slightly, but I'm going to take North Carolina overall. And in our final pick'em game, this is some West Coast action. This is San Jose State versus San Diego State, and this one's a 10:30 p.m. game on Fox Sports 1. Looking at the San Jose State Spartans, they are playing well. They've won 4 out of their last 5. They recently did have a player tragically pass away. I believe he was riding a scooter and he was hit by a bus. So our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone of the family of that player and everyone associated with this program. We know that they're going through a lot, and I can only wonder how much that's impacting their play. How much that's motivating them maybe. But looking at the X's and O's, this team has struggled to run the football. They average less than 100 rushing yards per game, so that is troublesome whenever you are one-dimensional as an offense. That makes you kind of easy to defend against. They're averaging 27 points a game on defense, and they're holding opponents to They're averaging 27 points a game on offense. On defense, they're holding opponents to 16 points per game and 316 yards per game. Moving on now to Brady Hoke's San Diego State. Fun fact, Brady Hoke went to my high school. Lacking a strong offense this year. Last year, San Diego State had a great record, but they're not really near that this year. They're not playing up to expectations, I would say. They're averaging less than 20 points a game. The ground game has been effective, over 160 rushing yards per game. But this defense, they're allowing more points than the offense averages. Newsflash, that's not a good thing. They're allowing 21.3 points per game, 367 yards per game. They've just fallen short of their expectations, not playing up to where they should be. San Jose State has a slight lean in this one. I think maybe the model just doesn't know what to think of them. I'm going to take San Jose State to get the win here, but I wouldn't be surprised if San Diego State gets the win here, but I'm going to go San Jose State, go with my gut here. So that's going to do it for this week's video. This is all my predictions for 10 of the biggest college football games this weekend. I want to thank ESPN for all the stats and info they provided. That's all courtesy of them. So thanks for watching. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and I hope your favorite team wins, unless, of course, they're playing my team. And we will see you all here next week for week 12 predictions. The season is flying by. Hope everybody has a great weekend.